Welcome to the League of Women Voters Meet the Candidates Forum, produced in collaboration with WTJX-TV, our partner for well over 20 years in bringing these programs to the voters of the Virgin Islands. My name is Dr. Gwen Marie Molinar, member of the League of Women Voters of the Virgin Islands, and I will serve as the moderator for today's forum. It is our goal that you, the voting public, will become better acquainted with the candidates for political office in the Virgin Islands, and therefore be able to make informed choices at the polls in November. We're pleased to have as our guests today 3 Democrats, Senator Janette Millin Young, Senator Justin Harrigan, and Senator Jean Forde. The candidates have been informed in advance of the format for the program. Each will have up to 1 minute for an introductory statement and 1 minute for closing. Questions of major interest to the public will be presented by the moderator. No candidate has been informed or provided with these questions in advance of the program. The first respondent will be rotated among the candidates. The first responder will have up to 2 minutes for a response to a question, with the other participants having 1 minute to contribute or to challenge. Now for the introductory statement, starting with Senator Jean Forde. Senator Forde.
Yes, thank you very much. First, let me thank WTJX and the League of Women Voters for this forum. I am Senator Jean Forde, a freshman senator, and I want to ask individuals out there to give me an opportunity to serve once more in the 32nd legislature. I have enjoyed working well with all of my colleagues, and I think that I have brought much to the table as it relates to debating the issues. I have been successful in the passage of my minimum wage bill. I have also made appropriations for education, for the maintenance and personnel. I have also was successful in the passage of passing a cigar factory bill, and that is an economic generator. As a matter of fact, I am pleased to announce that since that passage, that 2 such businesses have been established in St. Croix and 1 here on St. Thomas. So I'm very proud of that, and I think that I have much more to offer. I do have a number of bills waiting to be for legal sufficiency in legal counsel to be drafted, and I look forward to bringing those bills in the 32nd legislature. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Now Senator Millin Young.
Yes, good day, everyone. My name is Janette Millin Young. I am serving in my 3rd term in the Senate, and I bring a wealth of experience, especially from the business sector, to the position that I hold now as the chair of Economic Development, Agriculture, and Planning. We're not only we don't only bring legislation that deals with the committee that we chair, but I have focused heavily on that, seeing as though our fiscal crisis demands that we do the things that we need to do for economic development. So I've brought forth legislation such as the enterprise and commercial zones. I have done non-probate legislation that helps persons in their pockets. And the whole point of the legislation that I bring is to empower Virgin Islanders financially. And once we have an empowered populace, we should have less problems financially as a territory. My life has been dedicated to community service from grade school, high school, college, and now as an adult. And so the transition from doing a lot of charity work has translated well into my position as a senator, because I understand it very well, the problems that everyday people have. And my work here is primarily to empower Virgin Islanders.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for hosting this forum.
Thank you. And finally, Senator Harrigan.
Good day. I'm Justin Harrigan, Sr., freshman senator of the 31st Legislature, and I'm asking for your support to give me a 2nd term in the 32nd Legislature. Currently, I'm chairman of the Committee on Government Services, Consumer and Veteran Affairs, and I'm also a member of 4 other committees. So this is a very taxing job. But I love what I do. I'm making a difference in our lives in this community, and I'm asking for your support on November 8th. I have passed, along with my colleagues, several other pieces of legislation that I feel are going to be making a big difference in our territory. One of the first ones that I had passed or brought to bear was the expansion of the abandoned vehicles in the territory. As you know, you go through the neighborhoods and you see all these derelict cars there. Some are sitting on blocks, creating havens for crime and other vices. So that bill was passed, and it's an effort to clean up our territory, where we have guests can come and not make remarks about the littering in the territory. Another piece of legislation that I had my colleagues assisted me with was the one with wearing a bulletproof vest while committing a crime. As you know, we have a serious problem with crime in this territory, and we do need legislation that would attempt to address some of these incidents. And I thought that this would be well, because we have had incidents where individuals perpetrated crimes and they were wearing bulletproof vests, which means the police is at a disadvantage, not knowing that they have on a vest to protect themselves. So again, I look forward to working in this 32nd legislature, and I ask you to support me when the time comes on November 8th. Thank you very much.
Well, I want to thank all three of you, and listening to your responses, you actually have answered the first question I was going to ask, which was, what are your major accomplishments over the past 2 years that would justify your re-election? Do you think you need more time to address this? Because I think you all have done a lot of work, and you expressed them very well. So let's move on then.
Well,
Yes.
if you don't mind.
Okay, so let me
give.
give each one then 1 minute to add to what we've already said of your major accomplishments.
Well, I thank you very much for the opportunity, and I wanted to expand a little bit, particularly on the cigar factory bill, because a lot of individuals seem not to know exactly what it's about and what is the purpose for that particular bill. And one of the things is that we have to realize is that we have to be staying competitive with the outside world, particularly with the opening of Cuba. One of the things that Cuba is known for is their cigars. And it means if they're going to attract individuals that indulge in smoking, it's not for everybody, and we know that, but those that they attract, we now have an opportunity here to be able to offer a product similar and of a competitive nature with that particular thing. It also helps with our agriculture industry, because now we can now have a local cigar. We can actually, farmers can now grow tobacco here and have an opportunity to market it to our business.
Thank you for explaining that. Senator Millin Young, do you want to add anything?
Yes, I did speak regarding the enterprise and commercial zones, but I want to expound about that, because oftentimes we hear persons speak about all the Senate does is help the big businesses. And this is one that really deals with mom and pop stores, and is to reinvigorate our historic districts. So not only do we help ourselves with the tourism product, but we also offer tax incentives to mom and pop stores, which meaning one person owns it, they maybe have one employee, but they have to develop their businesses in the downtown areas. Another one is the marine tourism industry expansion bill, which, as we know, we're surrounded by waters, but do we capitalize on that asset that we have as a Virgin Islands? And so the tourism department, I'm happy to say, has embarked on making sure that this piece of legislation is working, and the EDA is working with that as with the enterprise zone as well.
Thank you. Senator Harrigan.
Yes. As a veteran, I am very much concerned about the veterans in this territory. And I had the pleasure yesterday of being an invited guest at the American Legion, where we observed the first official anniversary of what we call Gold Star Mothers Family Weekend. That was a bill that I introduced last year. My colleagues supported the causes. And yesterday was the first year, which the day is the last Sunday in September, has been designated as Gold Star Family Mother's Day. These are individuals who have lost their loved ones during service. And there were over 15 ladies turned out yesterday. I didn't know there were that many in the territory, but it was good to see that a piece of legislation that I had something to do with actually taking place. And I really appreciated that very much.
Thank you, all three of you. So let's now talk about some major issues of concern to the Virgin Islands and how you plan to move forward and what you have done regarding some of those issues. The first one, the budget and the financial situation of the Virgin Islands. You've just voted on a big budget that you are going to be making some big loans for. And so starting with you, Senator Millin Young, as the first responder, it appears to the League that in meeting our ability to pay this debt, there's very little in the budget that will provide us with the economic growth and the economic stimulation to meet this debt. Could you address that concern?
Well, how do I begin? I'm sitting amongst colleagues who voted for it, and I didn't vote for it. But I think the most important thing to remember is that we remain colleagues, that everyone is entitled to their position, and everyone should articulate their position as such. One position is not worse than the other. Now, I will speak to my position, which is I voted against the borrowing, and I am generally opposed to it. I don't always vote against borrowing, but in this case, I felt that our borrowing capacity is now severely limited, that we're borrowing for working capital that was not itemized, so we don't know exactly once that cash infusion comes, how the administration will be using it. I did hear some talk about a 5-year plan, which was not discussed with us. It was given to us perhaps the Friday before. Nothing to really study, because even the administration admitted that it's still fluid, that there's still time to give input to it. So it wasn't a plan that you can say, this is how we're going to go forward. It's still changing. We're not certain about it. And so I don't believe that even in our own homes that we would have borrowed to the capacity that we are borrowing for the territory for a debt that is going to take maybe 30 years to pay, to cover just next year. What will we do next year? So that was really my basic question. Regarding the $100 million for the GRS, I don't have a real opposition to that, even though it's really a drop in the bucket to what they really needed. I have no problem with that, but that was attached to the $147 million, and I had a very big problem with that.
Senator Millin, what would we do instead of borrowing?
Well, this is the thing. We have a lot of legislation on the books that some will admit will leave them on the shelves and not really put them to good use. I just named you the enterprise and commercial zones. I really haven't seen an aggressive push for that. I haven't seen an aggressive push to save. I haven't seen an aggressive push for investment. Had we borrowed for investment, something that we would see a return for, I would say, okay, give them some working capital, and this is how we're going to reinvest so the monies could come back to us. The other issue is that we already have $144 million in bonding capacity that has been authorized, and now we want to authorize many more millions, hundreds of more millions of dollars.
Senator Harrigan, you voted for the bill.
Yes, I did.
Why did you?
Well, looking at the situation in which we are in and realizing that I think it's next week Saturday or Sunday will be the beginning of the fiscal year, we need to have money to run this government. Borrowing, as Mr. Borwe said, is not a bad thing if it's being done in the proper way. The bill that came before us was almost $400 and something million. It was split in half, not directly in half, but what we did was took the first portion, which was the operating side of that borrowing, and the other side would be the improvement, capital improvement projects. That is going to come. We're going to deal with that in another week or two. But borrowing in this instance is not just to keep persons on the payroll. It is to operate this government. As you know, we have several departments such as waste management, police department. They have consent decrees by the federal government. And if they don't right in the ship, they're going to be sanctioned, millions of dollars. So these are some emergency situations that have to be taken care of, like post-haste.
Senator Forde, part of the borrowing involves the production of a statutory lien, and that was the first I was hearing about it. That provision was developed as a security measure for investors who purchase our bonds, but it carries significant risk to us as a territory, does it not? Why do you feel confident that we are safe with respect to this lien?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we have got to realize is, and again, let me preface my statement by saying that no one wants or likes borrowing, but we must recognize that it's a tool that's available to us to be used, and we do have capacity. And you asked the question earlier, if not borrow, then what? I think that we have a pretty good track record as well in terms of how we have always paid off our bonds. I know that many out there are very much concerned as they look and compare us with Puerto Rico. However, our structure is far different than that of Puerto Rico, and we do have the capacity to pay back. again, we got to make sure it's not going to be business as usual. We got to make sure that certain mechanisms are put in place. We have to hold the administration accountable, and we do intend to do that. I think that regardless to which way the vote went on the budget, I think that we all are very cognizant of the fact that, you know, we have got to pay GERS. They certainly are in dire need. These are individuals who are on a fixed income. Monies are owed to them, and we have got to fulfill that responsibility. We have got to maintain our salary increases that individuals just got. We have got to keep people working. That stimulates the economy as well. And, you know, as my colleague mentioned earlier, you know, we still have the capital budget, that the budget that the governor sent down. We have not really acted on that as yet. That is still to come before us in another 2 weeks. And so what we did was one, to balance the budget, to make sure that our GERS individuals are taken care of, and, you know, we have got to look out for them as well.
Well, you make a comment, yes.
Like my colleague just said, the statutory lien was a good faith effort on the government. As you know, our bonds were depreciated, downgraded to, I think it's B now. And what one of the bondholders said was that the people that want to buy these bonds will still buy them regardless of their grade. But because you're so nexus to Puerto Rico, they're under the impression that we're going to come just like Puerto Rico and go bankrupt. The Virgin Islands government cannot file bankruptcy based on the Organic Act. And with the statutory liens, it's a sort of guarantee that if you put your money and buy these bonds, you don't have to worry about us running somewhere with your money and you can't find us. But it's going to be mandated by law, so it is a guarantee.
I'd like to add, too,
Yes.
That with the statutory lien, it was mentioned during the hearing that we have been doing very well as a territory. We never default because of how it was structured anyway. So with the statutory lien, we could have a day or a month where the revenues don't come in, but that money absolutely has to be paid. And so whatever payroll or whatever other issues that we may have to pay, we can't do it at that time. Well, I hope it never comes to that time, but as policymakers, we always have to look at that wide view, that long-range view, and that is basically my worry.
And that is the worry of the League of Women Voters, exactly. And so we believe that the public needs to be made fully aware of the risk that comes with this lien. Now, Senator Forde, you mentioned the possibility of the capital projects coming in. So I think our first responder now is Senator Justin Harrigan as a first responder. Construction is often said or touted as a way of stimulating the economy. But let's be serious. The construction materials that are being used are imported, and the majority of the workers in construction are not local people. So in what way does construction stimulate the economy?
Well, let me put it this way. Let's use an analogy. You, Ms. Millin, you want to build a home, and you're going to have to get a contractor to construct this building. He's going to need money to buy the material to construct this building. He's going to need men and women to put this material together to form this house. If you don't agree to build that home, nothing goes on economically. That contractor's sitting on the side waiting for a job. The workers that he would have hired are just there twiddling their thumbs. Once the construction...
But excuse me for interrupting, but yes. Who are these construction workers?
Well,
and where is he getting the construction material from?
Well, we have a Department of Labor that should be looking out for our residents. These contractors are supposed to go through the Department of Labor, publicizing their vacancies and the type of person that they want to fill these jobs. The material coming in, there's import taxes. Some of the material can be bought locally, even though the supply of the material may have to buy it off island is being bought through his company that's based here in the territory. So with this construction beginning, and there's several projects, some are not that dire. The one at the high school, the middle school and St. John, that's about $32 million that they spoke about. But it's not an immediate thing. They talk about the police departments. They talk about the hospitals. These are all projects that the monies, once it's released in the community, it's going to have a spin-off. We talk about optimum spin-off or multiplier of 4, which means that for every $1 that you spend, it should turn over at least 4 times in this community and not just be taken off either and put in some bank. You got to hire people, you got to truckers, concrete suppliers. All of these people are going to come into the mix to get this multiplier of at least 4 to get the money going in the community.
And you're pretty sure that the workers' money is staying here and they're not going to Western Union and wiring them elsewhere. Senator Forde, let me ask you the other question about our budget. Could you please explain for us what this community reinvestment initiative is that has received criticism by some as a slush fund for the Senate? What is this community reinvestment initiative?
Certainly. As senators, we are often faced with quite a number of requests that are made of us, particularly from organizations, nonprofit organizations, churches, and so forth. And there are times, despite the fact that individuals may feel that senators have all of this power and can snap their finger and get some monies and so forth, we really don't. We wanted to be able, we recognize, however, that the requests as they come in, it was to fulfill a void. We had a void in our community and that needed to be satisfied. And we wanted to make sure that a lot of the good deeds that are being done, that organizations are in a position to help those individuals that they serve. And so we decided to create this legislative community reinvestment fund. And that was $1.5 million that we put in the 2016 budget. I must note that it's not in the 2017 budget. Anyway, nonprofit organizations will...
Excuse me, so for the budget moving forward, it will not be there?
It is not there, no.
Oh, well, that's a relief.
No, it is not there.
Fait accompli.
As a matter of fact, though, I will let you know, though, that it's all spent. Not a cent went to any senator's budget. It all went right back into the community for the purpose of which it was served, you know, after school programs and so forth. And so it's right back there, not contrary to what everybody else thought, that it was going towards our salary and all our pet projects. Absolutely not.
Great. Glad to hear that. Let's move on to taxes. In today's newspaper, it is reported that the governor is now requesting millions in new taxes. And the question the League is asking is, are these taxes really stimulating the economy? Is this just simply money that's being circulated, taking from one end of the blanket, cutting off one end of the blanket and sewing it on the other side? Don't we need to have new money coming into the territory, Senator Millin Young? It seems as the only new money coming in through the taxes is the one with the cruise ships. Are we wrong in seeing it that way?
Yes, and so the cruise industry has been taxed before. And I think you hit a very good point in that how do we speak about giving increases and, you know, making people feel good for a moment, and then at the other side is you're taking it right back away. So decide exactly how do you want to help the quote-unquote government employee, because remember, we don't just serve government employees. They're a very important aspect, because every payday you see that there are actually events planned around payday, because the government employee actually does a good thing for the economy of the Virgin Islands. But we also represent businesses. We represent those employees that work for the private industry. And some of them are, you know, they're inundated in my phone, my office, calling me and saying, but who represents us? Well, I want to be extremely clear. We are at a point in our territory where this financial crisis has been like no other time. And so you have a lot of people just scrambling, trying to do the best. And I don't think it is a time for criticism, but it's certainly a time for us to come together. I'm sure later you're going to ask about the retirees. At this point, there's so much happening that everybody's trying to come up with their own individual response to it, but folks are just not coming together. There's not enough collaboration. I don't believe in the overtaxation. We have it with the property tax right now. We have a community of people who we know that their property taxes went up 100%, 200%, 300%, and those who can least afford it. So we really gotta, you know, stand back, look at all that's happening, and together come up with the responses. It cannot be that you come one day to the Senate and say, well, this is our plan, and then we all fall and say, okay, that's the best we could do. That's not good enough.
Yes, well, you're right on point with the thinking of the League, actually. And taxes are not the only solution. We have to stimulate the economy. And so we'll ask Senator Harrigan, what have you done that you can say you have contributed to stimulating the growth of our economy?
Well, for one, I assisted my colleague at the end of the table with his cigar bill because I thought it was going to bring some revenues to the territory. It is small, but it will grow. And I saw it as an economical stimulus. Another one was with Senator Sanis with his increase on taxes of the cigarettes, a cartoon. People screamed, but when you look at it, it was like 53 cents a cartoon that he was adding, which brought in almost projectedly about $400 and something thousand, plus gross receipts was another $45,000. You're talking about $500,000 right there. I support what my colleagues bring to the table. We all can't come with grandiose ideas. My colleague to my left, we had the drought last year with the farmers. We passed a bill, I think it was $500,000 to stimulate the agriculture segment of this community so that those farmers could continue to do what they do best, which is to produce food and staple for us in this territory. I can't think of any one bill right now that I did because, you know, I have signed on to so many bills. I think when you check my record, you want to know if I'm really a freshman senator because I scrutinize the bills. If I see they're going to benefit the masses, I will vote for it. I don't personalize as to who brings the bills to the table or not. One thing I would say that really irked me was with the Lime Tree program where the governor had $300,000 and he gave it all to the St. Croix nonprofit organizations. $300,000 went straight to St. Croix. I am not against St. Croix, but I think it's a little unfair that some of that money couldn't come to the St. Thomas district as well. At least $50,000 of it. So those are the things that I look at, and I make my decision based on that.
Thank you, thank you. Now, in today's Daily News, I believe it was in today's newspaper, there was a brilliant article by Justin Moorhead on the impact of failure of the GERS economically, socially, psychologically, the devastation that could occur should this entity fail. And it should be required reading for everyone in the territory, actually. So, Senator Forde, the League is aware that the GERS has claimed that the Juan Louis Hospital has collected funds from its employees and not contributed those to their retirement accounts, but have used the funds for other purposes. What can the legislature do you think, Senator Forde, to address this serious issue?
Well, I think that we have done certain things in the past, and certainly by giving them an infusion of monies, we've got to recognize that the unfunded liability at both our hospitals, just not only the Juan Louis Hospital, but the Roy Lester Snyder Hospital as well, is tremendous. It's tremendously high. I think that they are doing their best to make ends meet, but that at the same time, there are certain things that we need to really look at as it relates to management. I believe that management is key. There are a number of individuals, which I will say without fear, that the salaries are just simply too high when we learn of them. At the same time, those who are doing the work, the actual nurses and so forth, we are paying very low salaries and have a difficult time attracting local nurses. We are bringing in people from outside and paying them the high salaries. So yes, that's one of the reasons why the hospitals are finding themselves in the predicament that cannot fulfill their obligations. But certainly we are not going to let the hospitals fail. And if it even means that even in the budget that we ought to be line iteming the spending for the hospitals, that is one of the things that the legislature certainly can do.
Okay, so you're saying line iteming would
In
prevent
other words,
that from
this
happening?
money goes towards GERS. This money goes towards WAPA.
Yeah. Well, we're hoping that for the sake of the employees that this would happen in all departments so that we could prevent that from happening in the future.
To add something to
Yes.
that, again, nothing that we're experiencing now happened overnight. And again, it's a communal effort, and the community needs to take some responsibility as well. The GRS is run by a board of trustees. They hire the actuaries, and they have all these financial experts, and millions of dollars goes toward the management of the retirement system. And I mentioned that because I listened to a radio show the other day, and it was like, the senators need to do this, the senators need to do that. But we're not there operating GRS day-to-day affairs. Not only do they have a board, but they have an administrator, and they have employees that run GRS.
Okay, let's go on to waste management, and you're going to be the first responder, Senator Millin Young. The territory has been threatened with having to pay millions of dollars in fees for non-compliance with federal standards in many areas, not only waste management and our landfills, but also the criminal justice system. Just two examples. And the Virgin Islands can ill afford to spend precious taxpayer dollars in the future because departments and agencies fail to meet federal regulations. What can the legislature do to ensure that we don't find ourselves in these conditions moving forward?
Well, once again, the legislature approves budgets, and we have approved tens of millions of dollars, well, hundreds now over the years for waste management, and we're not in charge of the day-to-day affairs. We are just as upset as everybody else when we wake up to see overflowing bins, to see sewer systems that are not working properly. And so maybe we need to have a come to Jesus with the folks at Waste Management. What is happening? We are appropriating the monies. This budget alone, I think, $55 million until the bond request came for $30 million. So imagine if you put all those millions of dollars together and the situation continues the same. What is going on? Maybe we need to look at not just this board, but all the boards in general to hold people more responsible, because there's only so much we can do as senators because we're not there sitting at the boardroom table making the decisions as well. If in fact we're going to have all the responsibility, I would say then get rid of boards and just have the legislature be in charge, because there's no other way to do it.
Senator Forde, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I wanted to weigh in because I thought my colleague would have even made mention of it since she preempted me with it. And one of the things that I'm so disgusted with the operation of waste management that I am even willing to propose that we do away with the Waste Management Authority. It's simply not working. And if nothing else, I think that what that will do, as she used the phrase, come to Jesus, it certainly brings the issue in the forefront of things, that what we have is simply not working. We are supporting it as much as we can in terms of the budget, but I think that the management, the ideas, it's just not falling together, and we are not seeing the benefit of it.
Well, what would you replace it with?
Well, certainly it used to be under the Public Works Department. Perhaps we need to really re-examine whether in the first place it was a good move to create a separate entity. We are paying, for instance, the salary of the CEO, which is even higher than the salary of the Commissioner of Public Works. Is that even necessary?
Senator Harrigan, in terms of waste management, are you in favor of this proposal of doing away with it? And let me ask the second question, part of that. What about the tipping fees?
I'll start. That's tipping fees. I'll leave that one for last.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm in favor of moving waste management back to the Department of Public Works. As a matter of fact, I made an attempt to put in a bill request, but I was preempted by the illustrious senator here who has all that experience. But I was a proponent of waste management when it first came into being. But I really, over the 10 or 12 years, I really haven't seen any significant improvement in the way the garbage is removed from our city. And it's not just waste management, that's just the solid waste side. There's also the wastewater. And I've had tours of several of these plants, and I could tell you they're in dire need of repair, if not replacement. So whoever brings the bill to move waste management from an entity unto itself to Public Works, I'm going to be there pushing along with them, making sure we get things right so that we can clean up this space. The tipping fees, nobody likes to pay more. But we have to realize that if there's a need for a service, the service might have to be paid for. And I think this is one of the needs. When I lived in Germany, when I was in the military some 40-something years ago, I paid $100 rent for the home and $3 additional to have the garbage removed from the apartment. So I'm accustomed to that. It's just something, I think just last week, we postponed the implementation of the tipping fees for October 1 to January 1, so that the department and the government can take an undertaking of educating the public as what is needed and how the monies are going to be used, because it is a reality that's going to come.
Can I follow up?
Yes,
Since both of my colleagues
have mentioned you, yes.
The fact is that I do have a preemptive right to that bill for eliminating the waste management. But the reason that I've taken great care with it, as I do with all my bills, is that we were told that this could be a problem exactly with the consent decree. And so whatever we do, we have to proceed with great care. But I'm happy that so many of my colleagues, not just the ones sitting here, but others mentioned it even at our last session, that they're willing to support the legislation. But I'm not married to any piece of legislation that I bring forward. I want to make sure that whatever is brought forward is the best possible alternative. So we will be exploring it as I see I have support to at least bring it to the floor.
Great, glad to hear that. I want to, we're looking at economic development and economic stimulation, and I'm wondering why in the budget more money was not invested into local initiatives that could actually grow the economy and stimulate the economy. I think we're back now to you, Senator Forde, as the first responder. Why have we not seen more investment in local initiatives that would stimulate the economy?
Well, of course, you know, one of the misconceptions is that the legislature is the one to go out and bring in investors and so forth. And as a matter of fact, I think that's the furthest thing from the truth. Because in fact, when investors come and there's any contract to be entered into, it has to come back to the legislature for ratification. And certainly that will be a conflict of interest. It's normally the administration that we take our cue from in terms of big investment in particular. Yes, what we can do is
Speaking about the executive branch, yes.
The executive
branch, right.
Yes. It's normally the executive branch to bring in, and we ratify. What we can do and what we ought to be doing is creating an atmosphere that's conducive to do business here in the Virgin Islands. Individually, what we can do, and as I have in the Hoffers, some piece of legislation to stimulate small business. I recognize that individuals getting into business, the hardest part is the very early stages. They need the investment, the capitals, and they can't afford the fees and taxes and so forth. So I have a bill in to waive the fees, license fees, the gross receipt taxes as an example, and so forth, to encourage small individuals to get into small business. And so that's one of the things that we can do individually, is to offer those type of bills. But to get the big investments, it's on the administration. We were so busy again because, as you see, the budget is so high that, you know, I mean, for us to even suggest something else, we got to try and take care of what we have now because we're in dire need. Let me add and take advantage of this opportunity that we need to collect. We have a lot of monies out there.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're not doing a very good job. I've had numerous conversations with the IRB director to, again, collect what's there. The government, our system is failing. They're not even billing or invoicing individuals correctly. And so we need to go after that as well.
I'm hoping that the legislature can move in that direction. Senator Millin Young, one of the initiatives that would fall under you...
You didn't want all of us to respond to economic development?
Well, if you wanted to add to it, you're certainly welcome to do that.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
certainly. We don't just bring bills as legislators. We also have to go out in the community and do certain things. We have oversight over various agencies. I have oversight over economic development. And I have tried to make a push to see that agency be more aggressive, because that's the group that goes out there, not just away, but also here and in the territory, and they encourage local businesses to start their businesses and are able to help them. I have also put together at the legislature, with the assistance of my colleagues, economic forums, economic development forums, the investors forums. And sometimes some members of the administration didn't even show. So that's what I'm saying to you, that we really need to come together. It can't just be about personalities, who you like, who you don't like. It's about the business of serving the people. So in addition to that, I also founded an organization that is a nonprofit organization, 501c3. So really the feds look at the spending and how the money comes in and out, but it's to support women to start getting into businesses, because the majority of households in the territory are really led by women. So if we empower women to start their businesses, we empower them and we empower their families.
Yeah, we see I was going to ask you a first responder question, but you've taken your time there.
I would like to weigh in.
You weigh in.
I have a pet peeve, and I will always say this, is with the EDA program. While that program was set up to attract businesses to the territory, we've heard so many times over about this structural deficit. As you know, structural deficit is an activity that's been going on for quite some time, not just happens 1 year and then it comes back up, the economy, but it's been going along for quite some time. And my concern, and I've seen it mentioned in 2 documents that really piqued my interest. One was when the EDA came before the Senate. They made mention about doing a feasibility impact study as to how well this economy is being affected positively by the EDA program. And I'm wondering, this thing has been in existence 16 years. Why a feasibility study now? That should have been in year 3, year 5. Additionally, in the 5-year plan, one of the reasons I've seen that they're going to try to enhance revenues is to make sure that the EDA is working more efficiently. So it tells me there's something going on with the EDA as to the impact it has financially on the government of the Virgin Islands. So I'm going to follow up on that some more. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you about that, because our time is really running out, and I wanted to ask a question about the. I wanted to ask a question about the farmers' proposal to request, I think it was 1% of the budget for developing agriculture. Is agriculture a viable thing for St. Thomas?
Who are you asking?
You.
Oh,
Yes.
I know you're looking at me, but you said you were going to ask me the question. But
just quick, I'm just going to ask you if you could answer it in less than a minute.
It is viable. It's not going to do more than tourism does or manufacturing does, because our farming lands are limited. But we have to look toward technology, and if we do embrace technology, it is very doable. With the school lunch program alone is $8 million that could go there. So, our farmers are getting older. We have limited capacity for land. So moving toward technology, agribusiness, et cetera, is definitely the way to go.
I will weigh in on that and say it is a viable entity, and the new commissioner, Commissioner Robles, is bringing new technology to the table. He's trying to encourage the farmers. The governor proposed farm-to-table initiatives, which meaning he wants the farmers to produce the food that the children eat in school. I thought it's a very good idea. But then again, the land is very limited here in St. Thomas. The terrain is very steep. On St. Croix, it's a lot flatter. But I think both islands can come together and provide some of the foods or most of the foods that are needed in the schools. Obviously, it takes time for that to be accomplished. And they have to learn how to rotate their crops. And most of the farmers, they are farming the same thing. So you're trying to diversify whose farmers what, so that you'll always have a slow of food coming through to go to these schools.
Senator Forde, did you want to add anything?
And I certainly wanted to echo the sentiments of my colleagues here. I can tell you there's one thing that's absolutely necessary, though, and that's going to be an introduction also to an education component about the agriculture industry. We have got to recognize that when we start talking about an industry or farming business, it's a business, and there's the business side to operation. It's not just a matter of planting seeds and waiting until they grow and then you harvest them, but the actual business side, the marketing aspect of it, and that I think is one of the components that's lacking right now. But yes, it's quite viable. We have seen it work very well on the island of St. Croix, and my colleague did make mention. I expect to see it having a great impact within our schools, from farm to the school table.
Okay, well, I'm glad you mentioned education. What is the relationship between education and economic development? I know you are chair of the Education Education Committee.
Yes, I'm the chairperson of Education and Workforce Development. And directly related. You made mention earlier about, as you talk about contractors and building and so forth. Again, are we preparing our individuals from an educational standpoint to meet our workforce needs? And that is key. As we go about the development, do we have sufficient people in the area of technology? One of my big pet peeves, for instance, is that the EDC companies, the EDA rather, the authority, is reaching out to a number of financial companies to come here and do business. But yet, how well are we preparing our...
But you're chair of the committee, so the question I would ask you is how do you make that happen?
Well, one of the things, again, I only have oversight, but I sharing my perspective with the Department of Education, letting them know that we have got to clearly articulate what our needs are. We need to develop a better relationship with the Education Department as well as with the University of the Virgin Islands. Again, to meet your workforce needs. Meet your workforce needs, you'll stimulate the economy as well. Pass the waivers to help people get into business easier, you help get people into business. So you're stimulating the economy. With the agriculture, the farmers, again, teach them the business side of doing a business. A lot of them just think that it's just a day-to-day to make ends meet. No, we can be so much more than that.
Okay.
I'd like to add to that that I actually sponsored and was successful in passing an incubator for the farmers. And soon after that, a group out of Miami got a grant to do agribusiness in St. Croix. And they got about a $1.9 million grant from the federal government. And within it, it included an incubator. So we didn't move to fund ours because we don't have to replicate everything. And they were going to be training farmers in their incubator. Well, because of administrative issues, the U.S. Secretary of Commerce has already threatened that they will take away that $1.9 million. So again, when people say, you know, legislators have to bring in money, well, somebody else brought in the money and is not being capitalized on because of administrative issues. So as Senator, I have intervened and I'm working to make sure that that money does not go back to the states.
Okay.
As a member of the Education Committee, I think there's a disconnect where we should have the Department of Education, University, Agriculture, and the Board of Education. They all should come together and decide what it is, what direction we want to go in. We have these farmers.
Well, then you can take the leadership and make sure that they do.
Well, we will have to
come
put some
together.
pressure on them and
Yes.
say, look, you know, you got to develop this curriculum so that the farmers will be able to feed us in this community and beyond. But it needs to have a collaborative working situation with those four entities that I called.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly happy to hear that. You know, there's so many issues that we have to cover, but the League wanted to make sure that some of the big ones were addressed in today's forum. Before we move to the last question, I just wanted to ask if you wanted to say anything about the homicides. We've had over 300 homicides within the past 5 years in the Virgin Islands. That's a large number. And so that data we got from the Community Foundation of the Virgin Islands through their Kids Count book. Are there any comments, quick comments that you'd like to make with respect to that? And we will begin with Senator Harrigan.
Thank you.
Responding.
As a criminal justice major and a former police officer right here in this community, I'm very concerned about crime. When I served so many years ago, there were 50 unsolved crime, 50 unsolved homicides. Let me put it that way because we're talking about the more egregious crimes. And I know for a fact, and the sooner we acknowledge it, the better for us, is that we don't have a ready pool of candidates in the community to fill the police department that is needed. The legislature, and I was a proponent of this bill, where we passed a bill to establish a forensic lab in the territory.
Isn't that coming soon, though?
Coming
Isn't there
soon.
money in the budget
Right.
for that?
We
Yes.
just put $500,000 in there to get this up and running. I hope the governor wouldn't veto it. But if he does, I'm more likely we'll override it because it's something that's sorely needed in this community to assist us to solve some of these egregious crime that we are having. So I'm foremost on that crime wave.
Okay. Anyone else to weigh in on that briefly? Half a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, I think that health and safety has to come first. And our crime rate is way too high. We are spinning wheels. I believe that if I had the answer to give you in the 30 seconds that you are giving me, I will be a genius. I wouldn't even be here. But I think that, you know, we really got to recognize that we need personnel to also solve some of these crimes. And our salaries are not very attractive. That's one. But more importantly, I think we have got to go back to the homes. And we have got to start teaching our children how to respect each other, respect self, you know, respect the value of life. And I don't believe that we are doing a very good job there.
Thank you, Senator
I
Millin.
agree. And as a mother, I'd like to condole with many other mothers in the community and fathers too, because they hurt as well. We try to talk about putting money after these issues, and we have to recognize that trust issues are very big. Some people don't trust if they go to the police that, you know, they'll be kept in confidence. So, but you also have the Crime Stoppers. There are ways to report things, and it starts in the home. We want to make sure that, you know, our parents are loving their children and giving them the proper example. Also, I want to thank my colleagues because we just successfully overrode the governor's veto of the crime study. And when people say we don't need any more studies, well, then we don't need any more schools. We need to stop studying everything. No, we need to know exactly what are the root causes that are causing the violence in our community, and that way we can actually assign as policymakers the monies to deal with these situations. And thankfully, the health commissioner has said that she's willing to take up that component within our healthy program for 2020, and we're on track. But we just need to provide more, you know, better examples for our children.
Okay, and we're going to be closing right now, so I'm going to ask each one of you in 2 or 3 sentences, tell us a major piece of legislation you hope to achieve in the coming 2 years, beginning with Senator Harrigan. What do you want to work on for the next 2 years? 2 sentences?
2 sentences. Well, I'm going to try and push my initiative of the EB5 program. I think and bring economical stimulus to this community, bring investors in, and use the workers that we have here, because the unemployment is pretty high in the territory.
Great, thank you. Senator Forde?
I think one of the things that I want to focus my efforts on is to assist in GERS with their unfunded liability. And I certainly want to do that through economic means, encouraging economic means for the Virgin Islands.
Likewise, I want to concentrate on GRS because that system fails, it's going to be catastrophic for the entire community. So I also want to work on more economic development initiatives, as I have for the 6 years that I've been in the Senate.
Good, great. Thank you, all 3 of you. And we'd like to thank all of our candidates for being here in the forum today. And thank you, WTJX, and for your sponsorship of these programs. And we will ask you to give your closing statements now, beginning with Senator Harrigan. Yes.
Well, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and WTJX for affording us this opportunity to reach our constituents and see what we have done, or hear what we have done, what we have planned for the future. I'm asking that you will check my record and see what I have done for the 18 months that I've been in office. I thought I did a very good job, but then you'll be the final arbiter of that. And I'm asking for your support on November 8th, that you would return me to the 32nd Legislature of the Virgin Islands. And thank you very much.
Senator Forde?
And likewise, I certainly want to thank the League for this opportunity. I hope that it was an educational component for the electorate to evaluate what the legislature does, what we have done as individuals. And I certainly think that I have done a very good job, particularly overcoming my learning curve in the legislature. We're not going to solve all the problems all at once, but I think that we are tackling them. We are on the right track. I have gotten along very well with all of my members in the 31st legislature, and I want to thank them for their cooperation as well. And I certainly want to ask the public to give me an opportunity again to serve in the 32nd legislature. I'm number 13 on the ballot.
Thank you, Senator Millin Young.
Thank you for the opportunity to present here today and be in touch with our Virgin Islands public. I would have to say that one of my weaknesses I find to be my actual strength, which is sometimes I'm just too honest, and I believe that we're lacking honesty, and if we're not going to be truthful to the public, we'll never arrive to where we need to go. I don't think I've ever promised anything, but I certainly deliver. I don't like to get into promises because I'm only one of 15, and I don't know at the end of the day who will vote for what. But certainly you have in me someone who wants to empower the people of the Virgin Islands. We can't all work for government, and really the sky's the limit when you start your own business. So I want to be there for our businesses so that they can employ more people and there are more taxes flowing instead of us raising taxes all the time.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all three candidates for being here on this forum, and thank you to WTJX and our sponsors. Please continue, viewing public, to look at all of our programs which air on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 p.m., and they re-air on Saturdays at 4 and Sundays at 4 and 5. Be sure you're registered to vote because your vote does count. In the Virgin Islands, where our numbers are small, one vote can make a big difference. Remember, your vote determines the kind of government we have, and do consider joining the League of Women Voters, which is open to both men and women. Visit our website at www.lwv.vi.org. I'm Dr. Gwen Marie Molinar, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the polls.